I don't really like this corporate fascism that Blizzard is doing by telling its employees to stay off Twitter unless they're part of the PR team. I don't like the idea that if you decide to work at a company, they should control your thoughts and what you do in your own private time. I get it why they're doing it. Like, I understand it's a threat to their bottom line because a lot of developers have came out against the community, but it's still disgusting when you see it. Yeah, it's not a company that you would like to work under where you're being micromanaged and controlled at every level. I don't think like the Blizzard of old was like that. Still, like this is not a video about that. Apparently, like as I mentioned, the people working at Blizzard, the developers, were told to stay off Twitter, and one of them apparently gave a like to another tweet by saying that Asmogold, a streamer, is creating the toxicity in the World of Warcraft community. And this created a controversy, right? Like someone liking a tweet created a controversy. I will tell you, like, I don't really care, like if a developer that's making a game doesn't like the customers, it's whatever. Like, as long as the game is good, no one would care. The problem is the game is not good. Like, that is the main problem. And the reason the game is not good and it's toxic, and I can tell you the community is definitely toxic, is because of the developers. And I will tell you something in this video that you may have not known, because I've been playing World of Warcraft since day one. And when the game first came out, there was no moderation whatsoever. I'm not even kidding. Like, the idea that like someone can say something and you can get them banned was just unthinkable. At least in the first couple of months. Because the company would spend all of its resources on making the game and creating better product. It wasn't spent on moderating what people are talking to each other. Unless you were on the forums, right? Like on the forums, there was moderation. But in-game, there was little to no moderation. And what's interesting is like how the community managed to police itself. Because back then, if you were being an asshole, if you said things that were offensive to people, they would just block you. They would just mute you. What ended up happening is that you would get blocked and muted by so many people that you would have to realize it's like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I really need to change my behavior, because otherwise I'm going to be playing this game solo, because no one wants to talk to me. But it goes even beyond that. Like, I remember when I was first playing World of Warcraft and I managed to level up to 60. It took me a couple of months, but eventually I got there. And when I was level 55, there was a guy that was trying to talk to me, and I was being an asshole towards him just because I was having a bad day and I took it out on him, right? But it's like, yeah, I gave him like a couple of snark remarks, basically. I was being a douchebag. And when I reached level 60, I wanted to join a guild, because when you're at max level, you need to be in a guild in order to continue playing, because like the end game is based around community. So I join a guild and I make an application. That was how it worked back then. And the person that I insulted was in that guild, and he said, no, I remember this guy. He's an asshole. Don't get him in. Right? So all of a sudden, like, my reputation was affected. And because of that, I realized, like, oh my God, I shouldn't be an asshole to people, because I really don't know who I might insult and who they're connected with. And because of that, I literally had to change my behavior from that day forward. Like, I was being a lot more polite to people just because I knew it's like, okay, I might upset someone that is some higher up on a server, like in the community. And if I upset them and they have connections to other guild officers, I might not get into a guild. And it wasn't even about that. Like, when you're level 60 at the time, you had the ability to form 5-man teams and go into dungeons. And if people knew you're an asshole, like if you had a bad rep, people wouldn't pair with you, right? So how did Blizzard ruin this? How did Blizzard just completely destroy this? Well, out of greed, they destroyed it, because now they introduced in late Burning Crusade the ability of a person to change their name, the ability of a person to change their appearance, the ability of a person to leave a server. So all of a sudden, all of this accountability that people had against each other was gone. Because sure, you knew that, okay, well, this guy is an asshole, and then the guy could just change his name, and no one would know about him, right? So all of a sudden, he gets a fresh new start. And before that, it was so difficult to get a fresh new start, because to level up a character all the way to max level was a difficult journey for many. But not only that, like, if you got a bad name, like, for example, if you did something more offensive than being toxic, like insulting someone, let's say you stole an item that didn't belong to you. It's called ninja looting. So if you're ninja looting, you would get such a bad reputation that literally no one on the server would want to play with you. Like, that was the most toxic thing that you could do. Like, insulting someone, saying slurs or whatever, that was more acceptable than to ninja loot. Like, that was the worst crime that you could possibly commit. And now people were able to do this because they would ninja loot something, and then what they would do is, like, they would change their name, or they would jump on another server, or they would... and there was no more accountability. Now, I just want you to understand why ninja looting was so bad, in case you don't play World of Warcraft, right? Imagine, like, 40 people, or 25 people, depending on the expansion. But imagine, like, this number of people every night spending 4 hours in order to try and get some gear. I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is what people did in World of Warcraft, right? And after so much time invested, after so much effort, the gear finally drops, and one person steals it and runs away with it. Right? Like, the level of rage, I guess, that people would experience when that happened was part of the experience. It created very interesting drama. But I remember, like, a guy who did it on my server, and literally no one wanted to play with him. So he had to create a new character, level it all the way back to 60, and this took a couple of months. And when someone finally figured out, like, hey, that guy is, like, literally the guy who ninja looted, no one wanted to play with him again, right? And it was even, like, when server transfer were a thing, like, people would usually have ways of finding out who you were, and they would send a message to the other server. It's like, hey, this guy, when he was on our server, he did X, Y, and Z. And then the other server wouldn't receive him, right? But because Blizzard is so hungry for money, and because Blizzard was so dedicated to milk the consumer of every single dollar, well, now they have, like, server transfers, now they have looking for raids, now they have, like, all of this thing that completely destroyed the community aspect of the game. And there is no more accountability, right? So the only thing that people fear, I guess, is getting banned by the moderators. Getting the ban hammer. And number one, that's not fun for the game, right? Because it was more interesting when the community itself, it was like grassroots, and the community itself decided that you're a bad person. It was more interesting and more dramatic than having a moderator just come down and ban you for 24 hours from the game. And number two is because, like, some of the things Blizzard cares about and gives a shit about are nothing that the community cares about. Like, for example, you know, I think, like, the word rape is banned in League of Legends, and it's probably banned in Blizzard chat as well. The community doesn't give a shit if you think about the word rape. Like, no one cares. No one gives a fuck. You know, like, you can say that word as much as you want. Like, people will still play with you. And the ones that don't like it, okay, well, it's their decision not to play with you. Like, they rob people of agency. That's the problem. Like, they rob people of their individuality. They rob people of their agency. And it feels so condescending when you get, like, a corporate that is just interested in making money, deciding what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable to say. And that is, like, the biggest problem, right? But, you know, I guess it is what it is. And the idea that Asmogold is the person that's creating the community to be toxic is complete horseshit. Okay, the community is toxic because the Blizzard developers were greedy, and by allowing people to change their identity in exchange for money, it removed all accountability. It removed all of the community interactions by destroying the end game content, which was 100% based on finding a community to play in. Allows people to be jerks and allows people to be assholes. So the Blizzard developers are 100% responsible for this. I do not blame people like Asmogold at all. And I'll tell you something else, you know, I would rather play with Asmogold than I would play with a Blizzard developer. Simply because of their stinking attitude, the condescending nature. I mean, someone like Asmogold, you know, actually looks fun to play with. He actually looks like entertaining. Like, you can crack jokes and you can do banter with him. But looking at how puritanical the people at Blizzard who work are, I mean, I grew up around some of the most radical Christians you can imagine, just extreme moral busybodies. Killjoy, as you can call them. Not all Christians are like that, but the ones that I grew up around, they were definitely like that, right? And they trigger me. They trigger me because whenever I look at the Blizzard developers, it reminds me of the same puritanical moral busybodies. Why would I want to play games with them? I would rather play games with someone like Asmogold. And I have to tell you something else. the things that Blizzard developers are concerned about, the things they consider toxic, is not necessarily what the community consider toxic. I mean, they will, be offended when someone makes banter and jokes and whatever. That's not the problem. Like what the community is most interested in, for example, is people not ninja looting. And they didn't address that for quite a long while. They didn't give a shit about that. But they did care about people using slurs and whatnot, using gamer words. Oh, they were freaking out about that. Why? Because, well, that's what the investors care about it. That's what the pop culture is about. So they have to pretend at least that they care. Even though, they themselves make the Bill Cosby jokes at the Bill Cosby apartment and all of that shit. Like, they themselves do it, but, they can't let their player base have fun as well. Because they know it's fun. Like, they do it, right? But you're not allowed to do it in their game. Because it hurts their bottom line. Yeah, and not to mention, they will say, well, the slurs are a problem. But then they don't realize that when you're a gamer, being called a noob and being told that you don't know how to play can be oftentimes more offensive and more upsetting than actually a slur. But, it is what it is. So, yeah, the idea that Asmogold ruined WoW is the problem in this toxic community is beyond laughable. All right, and the Blizzard developers not wanting to realize that it's their fault, not necessarily the developers. It's the fault of the company for allowing the sales department to drive the company. The sales department right now is the one that are deciding, we need a patch to sell more shit on the action, to sell more shit on the Blizzard store. We need a way to allow people to transfer from server to server if they pay cash. We need a way to allow people to change their name if they pay cash. That's pretty much what it is about, and it's so ridiculous, right? Like, there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to transfer from one server to another without paying cash. I mean, it's not like some revolutionary technology. It's just a way to milk money from people. And that's why, people don't like the Blizzard developers having opinions on Twitter right now. It's because they hate them. Literally that. Like, they don't like, they know what you're doing to them. The same hatred that goes to lawyers, I guess, like when a lawyer starts milking the client from money, and there's like the stereotype of the greedy lawyer. It's literally like that with Blizzard. You're exactly the same category. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.